Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30.
College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
All right,
coverage.
faithful listeners, welcome in once again to Outputting Our Coverage, new and improved with incredible audio quality.
If you haven't listened to the teaser, then you don't know. Audio Technica is our new best friend. We've got the nice mic sitting in here, and hopefully you can tell.
Yes, so now you will be able to hear the things that we're saying, so the crackle of static no longer plausible deniability for all of the bad predictions that we make each week.
The tunnel sound, now we don't have the tunnel vision or the tunnel audio, so we'll be able to see our picks much better.
That's maybe right.
I don't know.
I'm hoping for some late season wisdom here. And in that spirit, let's go ahead and, as we always do, good calls and bad calls. Let's get the bad calls out of the way first so we can just move on to positives.
Now, this one for me was technically I was trying to move up in the rankings a little bit, but I will say I thought Ole Miss had more of a chance against Georgia than what they showed. They got pretty much dominated. I needed them to win to move up. I knew nobody would pick them, so Ole Miss was definitely my bad call.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, they looked solid in that game early. Georgia has been a team with some slow starts this year. Auburn fans, fingers crossed. But, overall, you're probably reaching there a little bit on that one.
Bad call.
My bad call of the week has got to be Arizona. We started drinking the Rich Rod Kool-Aid.
Right.
Maybe a year or so too soon. I don't know. But
yeah, they're probably a little further away.
But, UCLA... maybe a little better than advertised, but
we really haven't seen them play a whole lot.
The Pac-12 just kind of, teams eating each other up.
Right.
That's kind of how it goes.
Now, I did have a pretty good call. Texas A&M, boy, did they look pretty good.
They did. They looked very solid.
Game.
And yet again, another nice lead into our Alabama-Auburn previews that we'll have here coming up in the next segment. We'll be sure to recap Texas A&M's game against Mississippi State. Let you know
of course, yeah.
What to look for there. My good call, I'm going to go with Kansas State.
Okay, yeah,
I said last week that I was no longer going to doubt the Wildcats and their 500-year-old Moses coach.
Right. Now, that game was pretty close early.
It was close, yeah, but they managed to put it away in the end. Colin Klein still stepping up when he needs to. I think maybe at this point you can put Kansas State right up there with Oregon as far as worthy challengers to this Alabama team.
Especially considering their schedule going on. They've faced pretty much all of their difficult opponents except for the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, so which there's no Big 12 championship game now.
That's right. There are only 10 teams. You're right.
Yeah,
so,
but I can see why you'd be confused because, as we say in one of our fantastic raps, Big 10, Big 12 can't count.
Exactly.
So... I don't know.
Just change the name. Swap. Do a trade.
I don't know if that was the conferences themselves we were talking about or us as far as who can't count. But
all right, so I've got the greatest trade proposal ever. The Big 12 and the Big 10 decide to trade names and 2 coaches. Now, you're going to argue with me on one of these coaches, but Mac Brown goes to the Big 10.
Do I have to specify what school he goes to?
No, he just goes.
He's like a free agent, just
they get to pick.
Going to the Midwest, and somebody just picks him up at the airport.
Somebody picks him up, maybe Nebraska, I don't know, Northwestern, somebody like that. Okay. Here's who Big 12 gets in return: Jim Tressel. No longer a part of the Big 10, however, always associated with the sweater vest. They can just have him.
Okay. I thought you meant like 2 coaches from each conference were going to go.
No, just one each side.
Since you did one, I want to do one.
Do one.
It sounds like a fun game. Let's say, just for kicks and giggles here, what about our friend Tommy Tuberville? You take him to the Big 10.
I think he would fit in the Big 10.
I think he might be able to have some success there. And then as far as taking a Big 10 coach down to the Big 12, let's see. Brett Bielema definitely out.
Right.
Not a guy who could succeed in the Big 12. Brady Hoke, I think he's probably in the right place.
Urban Meyer,
nah, he's definitely right where he needs to be.
Yeah.
And unless Urban Meyer is going to Texas or Oklahoma, and he can use the big name to get recruits as well. He probably won't have that much success. I don't know. It's hard to come up with another Big Ten coach.
Pretty tough one. Okay, they can just swap
most
names.
Most of the Big Ten teams just suck, basically.
Right. They're pretty bad this year.
Yeah. All right. Interesting thought. We'll let you mull that one over here on this commercial break. We're going to come back on the other side, talk about Auburn, Georgia, and the Alabama-Texas A&M games coming up this weekend. So stick around. We'll be right back.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count. SEC, college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. And Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Yeah, SEC preview. Here we go.
All right, we are back here on Outputting Our Coverage. Let's talk about some Auburn football. First of all, I posted a new blog at outputtingourcoverage.wordpress.com this past week. And that basically has everything you need to know about this game. Auburn, New Mexico State, a fun day for the players, but meaningless in the overall scheme of things.
You could see it coming in. New Mexico State had lost to some very inferior opponents, nothing like what Auburn's played this year. So you kind of saw it coming. You just hoped Auburn could come through with a fun victory.
Yeah,
run away with one.
Good for the fans, good for the players. Pretty much the only real piece of solid evidence I took from that game was Kyle Frazier put in at the end in mop-up duty. Looked absolutely atrocious against some of the worst defenders in the country. I mean, New Mexico State maybe has like one or two guys on their entire roster that would be anything above a lower-level scout team player at a school like Auburn. And Kyle Frazier comes in at the end of the game, and we found out that they made the right decision starting Wallace.
Kyle Frazier needs to transfer. The Auburn atmosphere, just the situation he's in, he's lost all of his confidence. Nobody trusts him. He just needs to get in a new situation.
Yeah, I mean, for him, yes, that's probably what needs to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to Arkansas State if Gus Malzahn is still there after this year. But from Auburn's standpoint, that would be a disaster if that happens, just from a depth standpoint. Not saying Kyle Frazier is anything great, but Clint Mosley's future with injuries is very sketchy at best at this point. You have Jonathan Wallace. You kicked Zeke Pike off the team before this year. So if you lose Kyle Frazier, next year you're really only looking at one healthy quarterback, Jonathan Wallace. You have to...
You'd have to recruit and get some quarterbacks.
I mean, Jeremy Johnson, a high school senior who's committed at this point, but his status is a little bit shaky depending on what happens with Chiswick. And honestly, I feel like regardless of what happens, Auburn's got to go after a JUCO quarterback this year.
They do, but before they can, they have to solidify what's going to happen with the coaching rank, because a lot of kids are going to wait to see what direction Auburn's heading in before they decide whether or not they're going to come to Auburn.
Interesting that you bring that up, David. It sounds like Auburn is going to be looking for a new coach very soon. A report on the internet today from Philip Marshall saying that the president of Auburn, Jay Gouge, has been making phone calls to the Board of Trustees saying that he is preparing to make a change at head coach. If it does happen, it's not a for sure thing yet. That's not what this article implied. But if it does happen, it sounds like it would probably be right after the Iron Bowl. And Jay Gouge says that if he fires the coach, he wants to bring in somebody else very quickly within a matter of days. Now, the next statement may surprise you. Jay Gouge did mention one potential replacement candidate, and I will personally send you a $5 check if you can prove to me that you knew who this guy was beforehand.
Without Googling it.
Without Googling it. The name being bandied about, Sean Watson. David, do you know who this is?
I did not before you told me earlier in the show.
Yes. Turns out he is Louisville's, not coach, not head coach, offensive coordinator.
So, who knew? I've said this whole time that the best you could do is try to get Charlie Strong, the Louisville head coach. I think that would be a pretty good move.
We're not willing to set our sights that high.
I think this whole situation is too reactionary. I think we've talked about this a couple times. I think getting rid of Chiswick is a little reactionary. I think maybe you need to get rid of some coordinators and give them another year. But even so, trying to get somebody back so quickly, I understand you're in the heat of a recruiting battle. I understand you're in the SEC and you don't have time to waste. But you're talking about the longevity of Auburn football. You've got to slow down and make a good decision because you don't want to be going through this again next year at this time.
Absolutely. At this point, I have much less confidence in the decision makers than I did, say, a few weeks ago. It also sounds like Jay Jacobs, Auburn's athletic director, is going to keep his job at this point after, from all reports a couple weeks ago, they were basically ready to fire him, and he kind of got saved at the last minute. So, obviously, some worrisome goings on right now.
So what do you think about Pat Dye? Do you think he's a problem, or do you think he's okay?
Honestly, I don't think Pat Dye has anything to do with the football program at this point. He runs his mouth on Feinbaum and other shows, but that to me, in my eyes, is not one of Auburn's real problems. I mean, it's annoying to listen to him, but I don't think he's actually influencing any of the decisions at this point. So
fair enough.
We'll see what happens there. Auburn does have to play a game this weekend, the Deep South's oldest rivalry against Georgia. Interestingly enough, Auburn leads this series by just one game.
Oh, no.
So if Georgia were to win this weekend, the series will be tied for the first time since, I believe, the late 90s.
For the first time in a long time this year, there's actually some outside intrigue into this game. Other people care about this game outside of Auburn fans, and some Auburn fans don't really care about it, but Florida is really rooting for Auburn in this game.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Georgia only has to win this game against Auburn to secure their place in the SEC championship game, presumably against Alabama. I'm not sure if it has not been mathematically decided that Alabama is
no,
in.
If A&M wins this week and then Alabama loses against Auburn, A&M would go.
Right. So it's not decided yet, but for all intents and purposes, that's probably what would happen. Georgia's two leading receivers at this point in the season are now out, Marlon Brown and Michael Bennett. Bennett was out earlier in the season. Brown went out this past week. But Georgia, as always, has quite a stable of receivers. They've been using one of their cornerbacks, Malcolm Mitchell. He's been very effective. Of course, they have Aaron Murray, and they also have Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall at running back. So they've had a pretty balanced offense up to this point.
They even put a linebacker in at running back in short yardage situations. So Georgia just kind of taking the mentality of throw anybody back there, we'll make it work.
Yeah, and really the more critical thing from Auburn's perspective is what kind of shape is Georgia's defense in. They've been improving. They looked better against Ole Miss. I think they're probably good enough to stop whatever Auburn's going to try to throw at them.
Probably, but you never know. This could be another LSU game for Auburn. They really set their sights up. This is the second biggest game they'll play up to this point. They've got Alabama looming, but this is a big game for them. Maybe they can get up for it. Maybe they've got a little bit of confidence against New Mexico. That's a 15.5-point spread right now, so the people in Vegas don't think they will.
Yeah, you brought up the LSU game. I think that's maybe the only saving grace here if you're an Auburn fan is Auburn was able to play very competitively with the team that took the number one team in the country to the wire last week, so that's a positive. Georgia is somewhat similar in their offensive style, but to me, Aaron Murray is much more of a threat than Zach Mettenberger, and that would worry me if I were Brian Van Gorder, which I almost kind of look like him at this point.
You do. The mustache is getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there. We're getting there. Growing my mustache out for Movember. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But one other thing I want to mention about Auburn here real quick. A story came out this week that Auburn has retained the services of a private security firm. Basically, the guys at the events that wear the yellow shirts and prevent you from rushing the field after you beat New Mexico State. That's the only reason I didn't rush the field this past week, by the way. But these guys have been checking on Auburn's players at curfew time each night. Gene Chizik instituted a curfew of 11 p.m. for all players every day of the week, basically after center Reese Dismukes got arrested for public intoxication earlier in the season.
Right.
To me, this is a very worrisome thing, just from a trust standpoint.
This is more worrisome than anything that's happened on the field, and it kind of shows you that Chizik has lost the locker room. Now, if you are a fan of getting rid of Chizik, this would be your one standing ground that I think you actually have legitimate argument about.
Right.
Certain coaches, they just lose their effect. And it sounds like Jizik has no control over his players.
Yeah, I mean, we all made fun of Turner Gill at Kansas, who coincidentally was one of the candidates for the Auburn job when Jizik was hired. Turner Gill instituted a policy at Kansas where football players were not allowed to date women or men.
Okay, I was about to say.